My name is Mizz. You know, a lot of people know me, a lot of people don't. But those who don't know me, I grew up in the 90s. Now we finna cross over into 87th Street Hustling. And it's 87th Street. This is where we grew up. This is where a lot of 9-0s. That's the home I grew up in right there. This is where the 87th Street Hustlers originated at. This right here was the junkyards. This is where the 9-0 started hanging out at. This was the junkyards.
87 Hustlers beginning, huh?
Yeah, 87th Street Hustlers.
Have you had a chance to watch any of the videos we already done?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about it?
I like them. That's why I'm here right now.
All right, if it wasn't you to represent West Coast 90s, who would it be?
Are we on right now?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it'll be a collective, man. It'll be Big Cadillac, Big Red, rest in peace. It'll be Jelly Roll. It'll be Willie Lunch Meat, Big Too Sweet. It's a variety of people, man. You know.
I actually got a homie named Willie Lunch Meat.
Yeah, Willie Lunch Meat. Yeah. Well, actually, it was Willie Lunch Meat. Then he changed it to Pookie Lunch Meat, but he kept the lunch meat at the end of it. Everybody had names, Dirty Dog and Insane and Crazy, and I didn't want to have a name like that. And it wasn't until I went to YA and came home, and I was, I had a lot of, lifting weights, and I was on swole. They started calling me Big Mizz. I was born in University Hospital. I was brought home from the hospital on 87th in Vermont. And we were the first black people to move on that street. It was all white. We were the first black people to move on that street. I can actually remember growing up and seeing, white people, and as I started getting a little older, I started seeing them moving out and black people moving in.
What year did your family land on that street?
1963.
How about Mexicans?
No, I didn't see no Mexicans.
And what elementary school did you attend? I
went to Manchester Elementary. This is where Phone went. This is where Lil Mar went. Phone and Lil Mar started 9-0. And a lot of H.A. Hoovers grew up on this street right here.
What junior high?
I went to Bret Harte. And then they started the busing program when they started this desegregation or whatever you call that. And I was getting bussed out to Van Nuys Junior High.
So you're about 54 years old now?
I'm 54.
And what gangs kind of controlled Bret Harte before you was bussed out?
You had, man, it's crazy, man, because you had Hoover. It was just really Hoover.
So they had the biggest and most control of the school.
At that particular school, Hoover was dominant. You had other guys went there, like you might have had a couple of dudes from Block, a couple of dudes from 111 or whatever, but overall it was Hoover, and all that was kind of new because they was just branching off from all these other cliques. I mean, they was just branching off because it was just West Side and East Side, and guys just started coming up with their names. Hoover and all these other different cliques started coming in. And Hoover was real popular at Bret Harte at the time.
So you actually grew up and went to school with Hoovers?
Yeah. And I was going to Bret Harte. So I had I was influenced a lot by Hoover and always wanted to be a Hoover, but didn't know how to go about being one. So because I lived on 87th Street, and there was other guys lived on 87th Street, we decided to start our own little clique. Started called 87th Street Hustling. And man, maybe about after a year of that, we wasn't like really reputables, but we represented. And the guys that had the established gangs like the NHC Gangsters, the Hoovers and all that, they knew about us. But you know, we was just dudes that was just like kind of like what you would call wannabes. We wasn't really Crips, but we wore blue rags. We wasn't officially a Crip gang.
All right, so you say you guys was hustlers. What hustlers did influence you to want to hustle?
Well, because we, you know, back then you couldn't just come on the scene and say you was a Crip without earning your bones. So in order to come in the scene, you had to come in as something kind of like, well, hustler or player or whatever the case would be. So we came in as hustlers. And what happened, you know, a lot of guys, because of, you know, me and Raybone, Bojack, Hulk, SWAT, and all us, Bruno, Baby Huey, because we was actually riders and we didn't even realize we was riders. You know, what we call a rider, but we wasn't punks and we would fight. And because we started standing up to individuals, we started getting kind of like, you know, people started noticing us and started coming on that street to hang out.
Now we're talking about 87 from what?
87 between Vermont and Budlong.
Was Nine Deuce already established?
Oh yeah, they was established. They was hard in the paint.
So all y'all was between Manchester and Central?
Yeah, yeah.
What was 87 Hustlers east and west borders?
We was 87th between Vermont and Normandy, Manchester, and 88th.
And what was Nine Deuce borders?
Oh, they had turf. They was 92nd in Hoover. I would say all the way to Manchester, to maybe Flower, and Vermont.
Can you name the founders of Nine Deuce?
Man, Dopey, Crazy Crip, Monk, Pocket, Funny Face, Wizard. It's quite a few, but the main ones at that time in the 70s that I know for a fact was Dopey, Crazy Crip, Funny Face, Pocket. You had Junior Rock, Wizard. You know, some of them could have been in jail, you know, that I didn't actually know. But those are the ones that was really like the ones that had the voice back then in the 80s.
What about Bloodhound?
I never met him.
Tell me how the 90s ended up on 92nd Street.
Okay. The 90s ended up on 92nd Street. Phone lived on 92nd in Hoover. Then you had Melvin. I think Melvin lived on either 90th, that was Lil Mar, he lived on either 90th or he lived on 91st in Hoover. Jay Bird lived on 91st in Hoover. Silver lived on Orchard, on 90th and Orchard. And I think Big Disco, which is Burt, he lived on 90th and Hoover. And they decided that they didn't want to be from 9-0. They wanted, you gotta remember, a lot of people was, you know, 9-0 and 11 Deuce Hoover kind of like hit the scene at the same time. You already had the 107s, the 7-4s, the 8-trays. 5 Deuces really wasn't even, they was more into the Broadway car at the time. You know, so you had, and 9-4 was just 9-0, 9-4, and 11 Deuce all kind of hit the scene at the same time. You know, so Melvin, Burt, Silver, Phone, Jay Bird, Snake, and a couple other people I don't want to mention. They decided they didn't want to be from actually 9 Deuce, but they did want to be from Hoover, so they came with 9-0 Hoover. And because Phone lived on 92nd, they hung out on 92nd, but it originally 9-0 Hoover originated on 90th and Orchard.
Okay, you keep mentioning Phone. What does Phone have to do with 9-0?
Man, Phone was kind of, you know, like how you got the heart and you got the brain? Phone was like the heart, man. That dude, That he was the reason why, you know, I was from an established gang. You know, 87th Street was established by then. Phone was able to convince me to become a 9-0. That's how he was just with it, man. That dude was with the business, man.
So Phone was one of the founders?
He was one of the founders of 9-0 Hoover, yeah.
And he obviously was a good recruiter, right?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, so how about 107? They was already established?
107s came, a lot of them dudes branched off from Nine Deuce. I'm sorry, a lot of them dudes branched off from 9 Deuce, and they started claiming 107.
Did Moo Moo have influence on the 107s?
Moo Moo, in my day, Moo Moo, Frank Jones, Oscar Jones, and Andre Jones. Moo Moo ran 107.
Andre Jones is Ani?
Andre Jones is Ani.
And he's part of the reason why...
He the reason why 9-0 and 107... No, he not the reason. It started because of something prior to him coming home from jail. And then he just walked in on it. And, you know, that was a travesty, man, because I had love for Ani, man.
Okay, tell me what was going on in your area in 1978. Was the fights, shooting, drugs?
You know, it wasn't really drugs, but it was the fighting, it was the shooting. It was more like, you know, back then if you had a squabble, you know, if you had hands, that's how you got your reputation.
In the late 70s, was Mexicans starting to show up?
Nah, that's new. It wasn't no Mexicans, no. When I went to jail, that was black. You know, it wasn't no 18th Street. You had South Los, you know, but they was somewhere way down there. You know, and South Los and Hoovers was buddies back then. You had South Los, you had something called Canali Stresse, and they were so small, and they was beefing with South Los. And then you had Florencia, you know, but they was like kind of like really basic going back toward where on the east side. And 18th Street, nah, man, wasn't no 18th Street, nowhere near over here.
Let me ask you about Space Ghost. When did you first meet Ghost?
I met Space Ghost actually through his little brother, rest in peace, which is Wack. We called him Toos. And Wack was hanging out with us on 87th Street, and Ghost started coming around. Ghost and Big Donut brother, which is Speechless, was Road Dogs. And they got real cool, and that's actually how we kind of connected with the 9-0s, is because Speechless and Phone got into a squabble. Not once, but twice, but 3 times. And after the 3rd squabble, the A7s decided we was gonna go over there and see what was happening with these cats. And Ghost was one of the dudes that came over there with us. Now, they didn't like Ghost. A lot of dudes didn't like Ghost. I had to advocate for my boy. And he'd tell you, old Travis would tell you, I had to advocate for him. But he ended up turning into a beast his damn self. You know, that's why I always believed in, you know, I always looked at this banging, man. If you invested in somebody, you know, either they're going to give you a good investment or they're going to give you a bad investment. Ghost always told me he wanted to have one of the best squabbles in L.A. And I don't know if he made it to that point because I was gone for so long, but I know he was beating cats down.
I know you heard stories.
Yeah, I heard, yeah, he was beating dudes down.
How and when did 9-0 Hoover come into play?
9-0 Hoover came into play around 77, late 77, early 78. A7 Hustlers kicked up with 9-0 Hoover in about mid 78.
Okay, so my next question would be, who started the 9-0 Hoovers?
Who started the 9-0 Hoovers? It was Lil Mar, which is Melvin, Phone, which is Trafone, Burt, which is Durrell, Silver, that's his name, which is 4-5, Silver, J Bird, which is Jerry, Snake, which is Eric, and one other individual, and I'm not going to bring up his name.
Okay, so 9-0 and 9-4 Hoover came into play about the same time?
About the same time. 9-4 Hoover was started by Antonio, Nehru. Manuel and Nehru was brothers. Antonio and Norwood was brothers. And then they had another brother named, they had a brother that got killed. But that's who started 9-4. That came about right there on Flower. Right there on Flower in 94. And, you know, actually, for a minute, it was called 9-2 which was 9024, which was 90, 9 Deuce, and 94. That was the clique.
How close in proximity was H-Ray Gangsters east or their south border?
Well, we was on 87th, and going north would be Manchester, and that was considered to be H-Ray Gangster. And actually, that's where Hunchy, Big Spike, Big Dumps, Johnny King, which was Mad Puppet, Fred J, Tennis Head, Gangsta Granny, Pie. They used to all come around 87th Street and hang out with us.
So Manchester separated y'all. We talking about the West Coast 90s, right?
Yeah.
Manchester separated y'all from H-Ray?
Well, remember now, we didn't become West Coast until we all clicked up. We was 9-O Hoovers over at that part. When we hooked up with Phone them, we was 9-O Hoovers at that part, and then over there, it was still 9-O Gangsters.
How significant was Manchester Park to the Hoovers back then?
Manchester Park is where everybody went to meet up. And Manchester Park predominantly was 9-O's up there because we controlled a lot of that area at the time. So we used to always go up there and play football games. We used to go up there. Most of us knew how to tumble. We used to know how to flip. We would go up there and flip, do all that. Bucky from H-Ray Hoover, Crypto from 9-O, rest in peace, Donut, Lil Donut from 9-O, rest in peace. They used to go up there and they used to tumble. And that, what was his name? Whack. Not Whack, Yak. All them dudes, they used to go up there and flip. They used to do their thing, man. So we used to go up there and hang out. It used to be a skating ring up there. You used to call Roller, so I forgot the name of it. But they used to, in the gym, they had a little skating ring up there. We used to go up there and we used to skate and do all that. Yeah, it was cool, man. It was cool. Manchester Park used to be the spot.
Hey, Manchester Park was like meeting grounds for all the Hoovers.
It wasn't just excluded to Hoovers. Other hoods could come up there, because Hoovers wasn't like anybody killer and all that. No, Hoovers was Crips. They had a lot of love from a lot of Crips, man. A lot of people just see the day. They didn't see Hoovers used to be real respected, man. They was because they was known for representing the Crip car, and it was until later down the line. But during that particular time, it wasn't just Hoovers going up there. You had a lot of other Crip gangs going up there and meeting.
So later down the line, was it ever a fight over control of the park?
There was never a fight and control over the park. 9-O's had a lot of influence in the park, and 9-O's decided, what happened to homeboy Big Two Sweet got killed up there. When he got killed up there, that's when everybody started saying, well, we no longer Hoover, or we gonna do this, or we're gonna do that. Was when Big Two Sweet got killed. And we actually stopped going up there.